Hello and welcome to Meet the Author live from book publisher New Degree Press, or NDP. I'm your host, John Saunders. NDP is part of Manuscripts Inc. This enterprise has now published over 1,700 authors from 6 continents and earned a spot for the second year in a row on the Inc. 5000 list. This is the fastest growing privately held companies in America. Think you have a book in you? Want to start or accelerate your movement in the next 12 to 15 months? Visit manuscripts.com now to learn more. This is a comprehensive coaching program that will take you from idea to published book, not just published, but published like a second-time author, which includes audience activation and creation, key parts of the journey. Today, we're doing a new segment of Meet the Author Live. This is an opportunity to learn everything there is valuable to know about the author, and we can answer your questions live in the chat. So to start, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. And as we go, drop questions and comments in there, and we will certainly try to get to those as we go through the segment. Today, I have with me brand new author, David Olivencia. His book, Networking Excellence, Building a Strong Values-Based Network in an Accelerating Digital World, will be available March 10th, wherever you buy books online. And thanks to strong pre-sales, he's already number one. He's a number one seller in several categories on Amazon. Congratulations on that. He's also an upcoming guest on the NDP Creator Community Podcast. David's episode will premiere February 22nd at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. David, great to see you. Quick note on your bio here before we dive in. But again, please drop in the comments where you're calling in from, where you're joining us from, and certainly any questions you have as we go. David Olivencia is a senior technology executive, unicorn investor, and exponential leader. He has leveraged networking and delivered outcomes at leading companies such as Accenture, NTT Data, Ford, Oracle, Softtek, and Verizon, as well as supporting a broad portfolio of early-stage tech startups, including several unicorns. David serves on multiple boards that utilize his approach to networks and deep technology expertise, and has co-founded leading organizations HITEC and Angeles Investors, where he is now CEO, that have grown due to networking. David has been recognized as 40 Under 40 by Crain's Detroit Business, Crain's Chicago Tech 50, and Hispanic Business Magazine's Most Influential Hispanics in America. He has an engineering degree from Rose-Hulman, an MBA from Notre Dame, and an honorary doctorate from Bentley University, and in his spare time, loves to fish. David, great to see you. Welcome to the Creator Community, Meet the Author Live.
It's great to be on, and thanks to all those who are with us live and chatting in the comments and all that kind of stuff. So great to be on, John.
We've got a great group joining us here once again. So let's start with unicorn. David, most of us have one perception of unicorn. How do you define unicorn in the context of the bio here?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's the
horses,
kind of
rainbows,
see, right? The little purple. Yeah, no. But then in the startup world, a unicorn is any company that's grown to over equal to or over $1 billion in valuation. So that's the definition of a unicorn, and I have one. I'll have two, hopefully more to come, but I have two right now.
That is incredible. Want to share the names of those companies you've had this success with?
Yeah, one is ShipBob. They're a kind of logistics supply chain, what they call a third-party logistics provider that kind of helps startups deliver packages from consumers or from the companies to consumers. They're picking, they're packing, they're shipping, right? ShipBob, and helping them. If you think about Amazon and their warehouses and how advanced they are, ShipBob is doing that for a lot of other companies, not Amazon, and helping them beat their competitors in that space.
Incredible. So helping sort of these smaller businesses get that fulfillment work done.
Yeah, and some big ones too. Some big ones as well. And they're global. They're global. They keep expanding, so they're doing really well.
Incredible. And what was the other one?
Grin. So Grin is kind of a platform. On one side, you have companies, and the other side, you have influencers, right? So you've got all these kind of this boom in social media, this boom in influencing, and Grin, Grin, is kind of the platform in the middle that's kind of bringing them all together, so that companies could leverage influencers to help them grow and scale their brands in this kind of amazing world, which I talk about in the book, right? This expanding digital universe. So Grin's the second one.
Incredible. So kind of a connector of capacity between influencers and folks that need the help out there. Brilliant.
That's right.
Love that you're out there doing that and supporting these early stage companies. So how does it feel, especially given your hectic schedule you got there, my friend? How does it feel to have a book out there wherever you soon to be, wherever you buy books online and available for pre-sale now? How does it feel to have your name on a book out there?
Yeah, it's great. It's, you kind of work hard at something. I mean, and you kind of not in my life, I've been working hard at networking, and I put the work in there because it's a lot of work. I talk more about that in the book. But then you also work at writing the book, right? And you work at marketing the book and all the things around it, right, to make it happen. And then to finally have it hit there on Amazon and come out, it's it feels great. And it's great for multiple aspects of just kind of accomplishing something. And it's got, you mentioned earlier, right? It's hit already #1 on a couple different categories in terms of hot new sales, in terms of bestseller in a category as well. Just very early, only a couple days into the pre-order. So that feels great. But I mean, the other thing is like it's just the start of, I think, as it's going to touch people's lives, right? I think it's going to help them accelerate their careers, it's going to help them find a job. It's going to help them more rapidly accomplish their goals. So I think that impact and sharing the stories and the people I interview around that, I think is going to be, special as well.
You've already impacted a few folks out there, it looks like. We've got John Canella. Pretty excited about your session here this morning. Thanks for jumping on here, John. Selena Rivera joining from Michigan. Welcome. Kevin Bayorgaba from Uganda. Kevin, great to see you on the chat here this morning. Truly a global workshop session here today from Fort Lauderdale. Eduardo Ortiz, great to see you on there. David Padilla, looks like from, I'm guessing the Central Northern California. Is that a fair?
I think David's in Hammond, Indiana. So he's part of my high school. Actually corporate network, right? We work at the same company. So, and I talk about in the book, lots of different networks in our lives that we should incorporate in. David is a part of one, and is a great, great human being.
I was thinking of Golden State Warriors. This is your high school.
That's right.
Nice. That's right. A few other folks jump out here. Matt Shockley, thanks for jumping in there. Who's this gentleman? Mont
Handley. Yeah, no, Mont's, another amazing entrepreneur network doing great things. Matt Shockley, before that, I've known Matt 20 years, lots of different networks. We work together. He's an amazing leader, former IBM executive, doing a lot of great things, actually running some entrepreneurial things in Belize. Just amazing thing. Amazing people, in life, you come across so many amazing people, and you have the stories that go about and how you kind of helping each other along the way. And I think kind of putting all these into the book has also been kind of a rewarding aspect of writing this book as well.
Incredible. And to talk about just this session here as an example of the work you've done, networking excellence. We've got people literally calling in from all over the place based on the extraordinary networking and continuation of networking you've done throughout your life. For those chiming in here, David, right? As we said, you're a busy guy. You found a way to get this book done. What was this journey like for you? How did you kind of fit it into your life?
Yeah, well, I think, I've always wanted to write a book, and it kind of had fits and starts and stops. And it was Selena Rivera. She said, "Hey, I'm kind of doing this work. I'm writing a book as well through New Degree Press, and you should really check them out." And I said, I think I'm going to need a little bit of kind of help and support on this. And so I studied the program. I liked it, and I believe, and I understand business models. I think in the publishing space, there's kind of two spectrums, right? One is you can just pretty much anybody can self-publish, right? And put something out there. And then on the other side, you got kind of just the big boys and the big traditional publishers with their traditional models. And then kind of in between, you've got, I think where New Degree Press kind of fits in. It's this kind of never write alone, kind of continuous coaching through every step of the process, right? And as I've mentioned to you before, John, I thought writing was just writing the book and putting it out, but there's a lot more to it in terms of marketing and scheduling it and all the operations, putting these things on Amazon, tracking how it becomes a #1 bestseller, all that stuff. It's I think you can't do that on the alone side, right? And you need a team, you need support to do that. And John and team, you guys have been excellent.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. And, I never appreciated until I published a book in late 2020. I never appreciated or read, quite frankly, the acknowledgments in a book until I wrote one myself, because then I had to, of course, write it myself. And now I almost always read them to see, holy cow. I mean, there's oftentimes dozens of people that you thank throughout the list of acknowledgments. And now I know why. That is fantastic. You are certainly a guy that's never stopped learning. What do you think you learned about yourself and your work most throughout this journey of writing the book?
Yeah, I learned. I guess I learned about this publishing industry. I mean, I'm always learning. I'm learning new things, technology, startups, and but this whole publishing industry is just kind of fascinating, and what it takes to really put a book out and all that stuff. And how do you kind of make the most impact of it? So that was one. I also think when you write a book, when you write on something, you actually become better at what you're writing. And I'm pretty good at networking, but I think there's certain aspects that I write about in my book that really help me crystallize things that I need to do to be better at it. And I think it's not only to be better at networking, but be a better human being. I talk about foundation in the book, have a stronger foundation, and just different things that I think have been able to help me. So I think I've learned the technicals about the publishing industry and writing it and the marketing, actually, and also the marketing of it. But also, I've learned also to just different things that I preach about. It's like kind of practice what you preach that I use in my book as well.
It's so fascinating when you think about the journey of writing. And so many times I hear authors say this, it's not only just the writing that was interesting, but how much they learned along the way and how much they improved what it is they do already. Because writing forces you to really think about it in a very coherent fashion. Many times we have thoughts in our head and we think, oh, I've got this great idea for X, Y, or Z. But when you have to sit down and actually put it on paper and get yourself and editors and beta readers to be able to read it clearly, that's a whole nother mission. So it really forces that concise thinking. So I really appreciate that perspective. And I love that we have an episode coming up here in just a couple of weeks, February 22nd, on the Creator Community Podcast. I dropped the link to that in the chat, where we get into these stories in much greater detail on there. And David was kind enough to be on the show there, so thank you for doing that.
Oh, it was a great time. We had a lot of fun doing that show, John.
I really enjoyed it. So networking excellence, David. Why the heck did you write this book? Given your, all the work you're doing, you're a busy guy, right? What was your mission that drove you to get this done?
Yeah, I mean, a couple different reasons why I wrote it. If you ask people, what's the top skill to get you career acceleration, promotional velocity? What's the top skill to help you find a job? What's a top skill to help you more rapidly accomplish your goals? The overwhelming answer will be networking. And but they really, there's no minimal to zero classes in school or the university that teach you about networking. And most of us kind of go through life just learning from leaders and stumbling along the way. And so the first thing is like, there's a need out there. The second one was around like, demand, right? Is there anything out there? There's really minimal. I mean, it's such an important skill, but there's not much out there on it. So I think that was the second reason. And the third is, I want to give back. I've done the corporate ladder to the executive ranks. I've invested in great startups and helped them. And I've founded some great nonprofits, and its underpinnings is networking and an approach that I have to network. And I've learned from hundreds of books. And in this book, I also interview phenomenal people who've achieved networking excellence and share their stories. Because it's cool. I mean, my stories are cool, but I think it's even better to complement those with some great stories. So kind of all those things together, and I think really, and in the spirit of giving back, right? I want to help people, and which is the essence of networking as well.
So cool, and so evident in how everything I've learned about you along the way, and the many conversations we've had, that this is just so. You have such great passion for this, and I really appreciate that. If people want to learn more about David and his story, by all means, go check him out on LinkedIn, David Olivencia, and LinkedIn. You can check out the new firm he just joined as CEO of, Angeles Investors, and can find him on Twitter as well at D Olivencia. So great. And his book, as I said, is available March 10th. It's already a top seller on Amazon. Incredible in just the pre-sale phase. So David, one thing about your title I find fascinating. Let me throw it back up there. You capitalize the word work in networking. So I know we talked a lot about that in the podcast, but a little teaser on what that's about for our listeners here today, if you would.
Yeah. It's funny because there's so many different components of networking, but it requires work. And actually, my wife and I, we were in Miami this weekend. We had a wonderful wedding that we went to, and then we came back, and I was invited to another Super Bowl party. So our flight was at 3:00. We get in at whatever, 6 p.m. into Chicago. And, my wife and I looked at each other, man, we're tired. I think we'd much rather be in our pajamas watching the Super Bowl. But I said, no, I mean, this is a networking event. Let's go. And look, we went, it was like 30, 40 people. And within a span of 15 minutes, we're networking with 5 or 6 different people on different aspects and just in such a rapid way. And I even said it and I was with my wife and I said, look, it's just work. And so you got to put in the work to it. But there's different components. Well, I talk about in the book, there's different components of networking, right? It's whether it's having a strong foundation that you really understand yourself. You have the right goals, you have the right brand, and you're really working and those change over time, right? So it's work around the foundation, it's work around identifying the right network, identifying the right networks. It's work around how do you pour immense value into your network and help them be successful. And then there's work around, attending networking events, leveraging social media, and then kind of doing that in a continuous way, which is around the definition of networking, right? Creating and improving value-based relationships to facilitate mutual goal accomplishment. That requires work. And if you want to be really great at networking, you just can't wing it. You got to put in the work.
I think what was the phrase we talked about in the podcast? 911 networking, was that?
Oh yeah, no, that's a classic.
What was that about?
Oh, that's Dr. Rodriguez, and actually it was his wedding that I was at in Miami.
Oh, nice.
So 911 networking, and those who are listening, I'm sure you've all had this happen to you. You haven't heard from somebody in 8 or 9 years, and then all of a sudden they reach out to you and they say, "Hey, David, by the way, I've just been laid off. I need your help." And you're like, you didn't even say hi. How was I doing or anything like that? And you're already like jumping for that. So Dr. Robert Rodriguez and myself, I think more him than me, but we coined this 911 networking as like emergency, and they're asking for a withdrawal before even, giving value. So that's what 911 networking is. And I think, the message behind that to everyone is you have to keep your networks warm. You have to keep your relationships warm and continuously keep in touch and that, add value so that things come up in life where you're going to need help for different things, but you've built that relationship. You have enough deposits of value and relationship value that, hey, if you make a withdrawal, they'll understand. They may not be able to help you, but it's definitely not 911 networking.
Could you give me a job tomorrow? Right?
Exactly.
That would be great. And no doubt, talk about staying in touch. The folks just keep coming to the chat here, David. I think about Padilla, David Morales from New Jersey.
David Morales, we worked at Accenture together, and Matt Shockley's in Belize doing some great things. And I'm an Accenture alumni, so that's another network, right? You work at these companies, so yeah.
Stay in touch. This one I guess has some kind of setting, so we don't see their name, but calling in from New Jersey or New York City. That's great. Carlos Mendez from Angeles Investors.
Oh yeah, he's a great member of Angeles Investors. Leading CPA, very bright. Yeah, just a great. And we're both from Puerto Rico, which is what our families are from Puerto Rico, right? So it's another part of it, right? You have that aspects of your networks as well, right? Depending on where your ethnicity or where you're from, right?
I can't believe we never talked about Puerto Rico, David. I spent 8 years going there regularly for business.
I lived there 3 years, and just so many dear friends and relationships there. It's and family as well. But yeah, talk more about it.
I really feel like I should have a suite at the La Concha Hotel named after me down there. I've spent so many nights in that place over the years.
There you go.
But a lovely place. Really enjoyed it. Still have many friends down there. Let's see, Rajesh jumping in here.
No, and Rajesh. Look,
Rajesh.
I worked with Rajesh at Accenture, and just really one of the strongest leaders in cloud technology and what's going on in that space. And Rajesh has just been and also willing to help and do everything like that. And in life you come across different people that you work with, and you're really helping each other be successful. Rajesh was one of them.
That's amazing. It looks like we've got a side conversation starting between Selena and David Morales. So love it.
Hey, also happens with networking too. You kind of connect people, and And that's the other thing we talk about the book. And I think, and they've already were connected as well, but just another thing that happens with networking, right?
That is so funny. I got a couple more names I want to throw up here, but for our listeners, I just want to share, we're going to jump into the rapid fire segment here in just a minute. If you have questions you'd like to share with David, please drop them in the chat. A couple more names. Another friend from Chicago, looks like their name's covered up. John in there from HITEC, it looks like. Jonathan, thank you for joining us from Chicago. Jill Hirsch, really a great group here. Gene, thank you for joining us as well. Oh, and Esteban jumped in there. Well, welcome.
You know, I mean, just so many great people. Esteban, we went to high school together, and you know, it's just, life's been great, right? Life's been great. And Esteban's a great friend. You know,
you just spent some time visiting one of the Congress subcommittees working on the definition, or maybe refining the definition of accredited investor. Can we talk a little bit about what that was like last week, David? And then we have a question about that in the chat here, it looks like, from Jean Charles. But what was it like sitting in front of Congress last week and sharing your thoughts on accredited investors?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I talk about in my book, I've been invited to the White House across 3 presidential administrations, and all of that's due to networking. And there's a bunch of great stories we can maybe share another time on that. But no, it was last week. Yeah, so last week I was in the Financial Services Committee, and it was, you know, just thought this subject around accredited investing and angel investing, and then how you can only angel invest if you make $200,000 a year, you have $1 million in assets and all that kind of. And I grew up. I mean, you know, I grew up in very humble beginnings. My grandmothers were cooks in a restaurant. My father didn't fit, you know, dropped out of high school to support my grandma. And so I've always kind of, even like 10 years ago, I barely made the definition for being an accredited investor. And I tell the story about, you know, this person, Carlos, right, who wanted to invest in a great company and couldn't. He had an MBA from a leading university because he didn't meet this accredited investor definition, which I think only 10% of the U.S. the adult population qualify, right? So the idea is, hey, how do we, in a safe way, just open up that definition a bit more, so that people, like in my story, like a Carlos with an MBA from a leading university, great job, didn't quite meet the $200,000 a year threshold, but if they wanted to invest in some of these great startups, could do that. So it was on that, and it's, you know, so you have members of Congress. There's questions that are going back and forth. You share 5 minutes of your kind of life story and your perspective on this issue. And there's, you know, interesting people who are interesting members of Congress. We had Maxine Waters, we had Congressman Bill Huizenga, we had Pete Sessions, and a lot of, and, you know, the different Chair Wagner and all, and it was her first, I think, time chairing this committee. So there's a bit of welcoming her, but it was very, very collegial. I think it's something in a bipartisan way that we can work to. I mean, there's a lot of things that are non-part. This one, I think, is one that I think we can come together in a bipartisan way to help open it up to get more investors.
And it sounds like you talked a little bit around Gene's question here, which is, do you see this definition changing in time to let more people participate?
It's a process, you know. I think I'm confident we'll get a change, but it's gonna, you know, it's a process to get things through the legal process or the congressional process in DC.
You know, it's right. I often think sometimes people ask, you know, I worked in the investment management business for many years, and people would ask about mutual funds, and, you know, maybe they need some updating. And I often joked about the fact that, you know, they're called 40 Act funds, and people would be like, what does that mean? They were the act that created mutual funds. It was invented in 1940. So, you know, maybe there's.
But I think the definition of accredited is like, I don't know, like 30 years, 40 years ago or something like that. It's a pretty old definition.
Right. So great you're out doing that work and coming in to visit our leaders in Washington, D.C. A couple other folks have jumped on here. Roman, great to see you. Another America Baez.
America Baez. Yeah, America and I, we were part of another network. Roman, he's part of, you know, he's served our country in the military. He's also a member of Angeles Investors. That network is just a very active member. In America, she led another nonprofit. I talk about nonprofits in the book that she was a part of. Phenomenal leader in Chicago. So yeah, a lot of great leaders and great networks. Right, these are all different people that are just different networks throughout my career, and some are part of my social network. Right, maybe not a group or that, but maybe they're just part of the social. So I welcome them all too. It's great to see them on as well.
And it's just living the example of the book you've written here, my friend. And Ariane,
You got to practice what you preach, John.
Right? So good. Well, let's jump in. Oh, one quick question: Would you write another book, David? Was that?
I know. Yeah, no. I would. I've got I have one in mind that I want to write, and it's kind of in this investing space, a little unicorn. But I've got so much. It's also time, right? And I'm having so much fun right now. But it's so much, it is a time commitment, right? And so I'm trying to balance that. So it's going to come, but I'm going to try. There's a lot of things going on with the great stuff that we're doing at Angeles Investors. So I want to make sure that we're focused there and we're successful. And then that will come, shortly after.
That is outstanding. I'm going to drop David's Amazon link in the chat here for those who want to go out and get your copy today. You can pre-order it now between now and March. And we've got some promotional pricing here coming up. Oh, one more question in the chat from Matt here. You mentioned giving back. Do you have any initiatives that you're involved in or nurturing that you'd recommend to your network?
Oh, there's a couple. I'm looking at potentially advising a company that's helping a community of children or that are just have disabilities. So that's one initiative that I'm looking at. I think what I write in the book is, I think we all, as part of building a strong foundation for networking, we deeply need to understand our purpose. What's our purpose in life? What's our mission in life? What makes us happy? What are our strengths? And what value can we give to any person, any group, but really deeply understanding those, right? And I think I do that, and I continue, and that then sharpens my mind of what initiatives I focus on, where I spend my time. But I think it can be helpful for everybody else as well.
And I think that might be a nice lead into this next question here. What would you recommend someone start if they're interested in becoming an investor, and it also meets the criteria for, how do you sort of get involved in angel investing, I guess is the question here.
Yeah, so there's an Angel Capital Association. They were one of their board members was with me on the panel. He's also a member of Angeles Investors, named Eli Velasquez. So you can follow the Angel Capital Association, follow Eli Velasquez. There's a lot of angel groups out there. So to the extent you can join them based on your geographic, your industry expertise. If you like, Hispanic, Latinx, we have analysts, but there's all a whole potpourri of different angel groups that you can join those. And there's a couple different books on angel investing. I think some of them I have up here that you can read and as well, that I think will help. And then if you're non-accredited, I highly recommend Vitalize Angels. They have a group of that they've been able to pull together investments in companies for a group of non-accredited. There's certain little caveats in the law that can make that happen. So that's what I would recommend.
Another one I'll add to that list is many universities have angel investment groups, and within that group, they allow people to join as non-investing members. That is something I've seen at a few different universities out there for angel groups. So you can be a part of it, but not an investor, but go to the meetings, the pitch meetings, things like this. That is fantastic. Well, we are, let's dive into the rapid fire questions here, David, where we're going to learn everything valuable there is to know about you that we haven't learned yet. All right. These are the quick ones. All right. You ready to dive in here, buddy?
I think so. Yeah.
I like to start with this one, which is always, I find, the most telling about people, which is a favorite sandwich.
Oh, this is a good one. So, how like pizza wasn't invented. Why? I don't think it was invented in Italy. I think it was invented in New York or something like that, or in the US. So my favorite sandwich is called the jibarito sandwich. And the jibarito sandwich it was made by Puerto Ricans in Chicago. And John, you'll appreciate this since you spent so much time in Puerto Rico. So it's, instead of bread, they take plantains or tostones, and they act as the bread. So you got two of those. Then in the middle, you can do a lot of different things, but you can either have steak or pork. But I have steak, onions, tomatoes, mayonnaise, kind of and some garlic, a little bit of garlic in between two, plantains that act as kind of the bread. It is It is the best, maybe not the healthiest, but one of the best sandwiches made in, founded in Chicago. I think it's went national. It's called the Jibarito. If you haven't had one, John, the next time you're in Chicago, you got to have one. I think they may even have them in Puerto Rico as well, maybe New York, Orlando, but the Jibarito is a sandwich, John.
I've had so many amazing meals in Puerto Rico, I have to say. I went to Bottle's restaurant in Guaynabo so many times that by the end of my run there, I walked in and the maitre d' looks at me and I was waiting for some clients to meet with. And she goes, do you live near here? Because you're here all the time. I was like, actually, I don't even live here. But
I think I saw your picture as customer of the month when I walked in there one time.
Favorite color, David?
Blue.
All
Blue.
right. It's on the cover there. Favorite or most memorable vacation spot?
Bemidji, Minnesota in the summer. Fishing, nature. That's I love it.
That is the first shout out for Bemidji, Minnesota on Meet the Author Live. I'm just going to put it out there.
Well, I mean, Miami in the wind. Miami is the other one, and Puerto Rico, but Bemidji is mine. That's
being from the upper Midwest, Wisconsin guy. That's where I'm originally from now, in the DC area. But my sister's in Minnesota, so I'm a big fan of the state. Scariest animal?
Tiger.
No doubt, right? Apples or bananas? Better fruit, David?
Banana.
I'm going to have to agree to disagree on that one. Favorite or most memorable movie?
Lots of them. I like The Godfather.
Oh, classic. Here's one that always really gives us some deep insights here. First concert you ever went to?
Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Rosemont, the Rosemont Theater near O'Hare.
In Chicago. Nice.
That's right.
Favorite smell?
My wife's perfume.
Wow. Solid answer there, buddy. Solid answer. Last photo on your phone.
Happy wife, happy life. and all.
Last photo on your phone.
Oh, so I was in Miami, mentioned earlier, at a wedding of Dr. Rodriguez, who I interviewed my book, and he gives a praise report in my book. And I had breakfast yesterday with a company that I invested in called the Mom Project. So I had I was in Miami. The CEO lived in Miami. He said, hey, this is part of networking too, right? Hey, I'm going to be in Miami. You got anything? And we kind of went back and forth. And we had breakfast on Sunday with her husband and her children, which was very special, very sweet.
Nice.
And we ended up taking a picture and sending it to a mentee of mine who works at the Mom Project as well. And she's also a member of Angeles Investors, Angie Stratman.
Oh, nice.
And so that's the picture. That's the last picture on my phone.
I just looked, and it was on mine is a secret selfie my 9-year-old son took last night that I didn't know was on there yet. Favorite song to sing, with or without an audience?
Oh, probably it's either Happy Birthday or the Notre Dame fight song.
I was hoping for, maybe fight Beastie Boys or something.
Yeah, no.
What is one thing you really should throw out, my friend?
I got some shirts that are just, I probably have some shirts I haven't worn in years that are just kind of sitting there, and my wife keeps telling me to throw them away. I keep saying later, and later keeps happening. So that's
well, maybe this could slide into your next question here. The next question here: most audacious goal for 2023? Cleaning up the closet, and what's the next one?
Yeah, I know. So, Angeles Investors, right? We have about 150 members. Really, I'd like to get that to 300 members. So that's one. We're raising a fund, $35 million fund. That's going to be pretty big and audacious. I'd like to do, I'd like to sell 10,000 books this year. We're off to a really good start. I'm just kind of judging. I don't know if it's big and audacious yet, but I said, let me put something that's a little bit out there. And I talk about it in my book about that scares you a little bit, but so that was one. And I think those are the big. And one major speaking engagement a month on networking.
Love that one. And as I said, if David, you want to connect with David to learn more about getting him to come do speaking for you, you can find him on LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course at Angeles Investors on LinkedIn as well. You've got a number of great praise quotes on your book. What's one you'd like our listeners to hear?
Yeah, the one that I like, I like all any praise quote I get, anybody who writes, I like them all, even the ones that give constructive feedback. So I like them all. I think this one, it encapsulates a lot of them. And it was, and I mentioned it was I was at his wedding this weekend, and he's a best-selling author. He's doing some great things. It's Dr. Robert Rodriguez, and he's the president of DRR Advisors. And he's an author as well of Employee Resource Group Excellence. And I'll read it. He says, David Olivencia has written a must read for anyone looking for an edge to advance their career and accelerate their promotional velocity. This book is filled with valuable tips and insights that will help the reader differentiate themselves from other smart and hardworking people. I've known David for many, many years, and he's the real deal. And we are all fortunate that he shares some of his secrets and success tips with us in this well-written book. To not read this book and apply his teachings would be a big mistake. Big, period, huge, exclamation point, quote. And then, and Robert, I talked about earlier, did he's a 911 networking. So him and I, we talked, and it's him around 9, but successful author. He speaks around the country, and I was honored to be at his wedding this past weekend in beautiful Miami. At the Blue Hotel, even the nicest place.
I really appreciate that. The key word I heard in that quote was differentiate, right? So many people are hardworking and do the things, but how do you really find a way to differentiate yourself? And I so appreciate the roadmap you've created in your book that we talk so much about in the podcast, and certainly in your book, about how you go through that differentiation process where you can create and add value for so many others to build and grow that network in a meaningful way. Love that. Couple more questions here, and we'll wrap it up. So if anybody has any other questions, by all means, drop them in the chat here as we make our way through the last couple of questions here. But most memorable moment in the writing journey?
Lots of them, but I will tell you, when you look at that Amazon page with your book there, well, I guess kind of when you see your book is one, but when you look at that Amazon page with your book there, and then you see that you're a #1 hot bestseller or whatever, and then you see it a couple times, I think that to me was that's like, wow, it's very impressive, but it's also, thankful, right? I mean, a lot of friends, family, coworkers, people I work with, have been buying the book, and their show of support, and very, very helpful. So that's the moment, John.
That is awesome. Yeah, right. You go on Amazon, you see a product on there, and it's got your name on it, right? How bizarre. Incredible. And congratulations to be a bestseller before it's even available. I mean, it's hard enough to become a bestseller, but it's not even available yet other than pre-sale. And there you are. What would you say to others thinking about writing a book, David?
Yeah, I would say, I think we all have interesting perspectives, life experiences, that we can share. I would say, I would encourage you to find that kind of unique thing that the world, I think, will care about as it relates to your life, and go for it, and give that contribution back to the world, and share your perspectives out there. And it's a bit of a legacy, right? And leave a legacy for others, for your family, as well. So, and then I would maybe the last thing is, I would say don't do it alone and use the NDP model, but there's a lot of different ways you can go out publishing, but kind of the coaching, the assistance along the way, and you want to do it with some, with the right partner. And I've had a great one in NDP.
Well, you were a unique case in that you had your story so well worked out before you arrived here. So it took sort of more sanding and fine tuning, which was part of the journey. But plenty of people come here with sort of an inkling of an idea and find their way there as well. So plenty of ways to get it done. Don't have to have the idea fully thought out. In fact, that's certainly part of the journey. David, how would you describe your writing journey in 5 words? Doesn't have to be a sentence.
Yeah. Thought it was a marathon. It was a triathlon because of all the work you have to do it, but a fun, rewarding, life-changing experience, which is, probably 15 words, John, but
well, we'll have to
you're counting. Oh, that's right.
Work on the math. We'll have to work on the math there, the counting. David, unbelievable story. So delighted you were on the podcast and joined us here on this LinkedIn Live. Closing thoughts for our listeners here today.
No, so look, first of all, thank everyone for taking the time to jump on this podcast. I would encourage you, if to pre-order the book. I think there's a ton of lessons in there, some great stories. I interview some great people. These are all the life lessons that I've learned. I think it will help you, but even for your teams, right? I think a lot of us, can expense it, right, as in terms of just educational content. So I would say thank you, right? Thank you to all. In one way or the other, everybody who's listening to this is part of my network. So appreciate you. And if there's anything I can do to help you, obviously don't hesitate. And John, I want to thank you and the whole NDP team for helping me get this book across the line, helping me be a #1 bestseller in a couple different categories. And more great things are coming.
Unbelievable what you've accomplished thus far. No doubt many more great days ahead with the work you're doing on Capitol Hill, with Angeles Investors, and working to help so many others out there. David, thank you so much for sharing your story here today and with the creator community.
Thank you, John. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks to our listeners out there for joining this episode of Meet the Author Live. Definitely check out David's book, Networking Excellence, wherever you buy books online. You can pre-sale order it today and see the full interview at the Creator Community channel on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us tomorrow for another an episode of Meet the Author Live with new author Dr. Miriam Zilbergleit, and learn the secrets for achieving life of joy, meaning, and happiness with the 3G life cycle. I'm your host of the Creator Community, John Saunders. Keep creating.